What if Yuji Itadori had Gojo's abilities? This would completely change the start of Jujutsu Kaisen. But the biggest thing to understand first is that Yuji wouldn't be at full power yet. Even if he had the Six Eyes and the Limitless technique, that doesn't instantly make him as strong as Gojo. Back in the Hidden Inventory arc, when Gojo was younger, he already had those abilities, but he didn't fully understand them yet. It wasn't until Toji pushed him into a near-death situation that Gojo awakened his full potential, learning Reverse Curse technique and eventually mastering abilities like his Domain Expansion. So in this timeline, Yuji is more like young Gojo. He has the talent and the broken technique, but he doesn't fully understand how to use it yet. So the story still begins with Yuji living his normal life until Megumi shows up looking for Sukuna's finger. When the curse situation happens at the school and Yuji jumps in to help, this is where things start changing. Yuji still eats the finger to save everyone, but during the chaos, some curse attacks slow down before they hit him. Yuji doesn't realize it yet, but that's Limitless activating instinctively. After that, Gojo arrives and the rooftop scene plays out like normal, except Gojo quickly notices something huge. Yuji isn't just Sukuna's vessel, he also has the Six Eyes and Limitless. This is exactly why Gojo becomes so interested in him. For the first time, Gojo has a student who can actually understand and learn his technique. But there's another reason too. Since Yuji is Sukuna's vessel, Gojo already knows Yuji could eventually inherit Sukuna's techniques as well. That means Yuji could end up with Limitless, the Six Eyes, and Sukuna's abilities in the same body. From Gojo's perspective, that kind of potential is insane. Gojo even realizes that if Yuji grows properly, he could eventually rival him or maybe even surpass him someday. Because of that, Gojo decides he's going to personally train Yuji. After that, Yuji goes to Jujutsu High and meets Nobara. Gojo immediately throws the two of them into their first mission together while Megumi watches. They're sent to deal with a curse inside an abandoned building. This mission mostly plays out the same way, but one big thing stands out. During the fight, some of the curse attacks slow down when they get close to Yuji. Yuji can't control Limitless yet, but it still activates sometimes and protects him. Nobara notices Yuji surviving hits that normally would have been dangerous, and Megumi realizes Yuji's ability is actually starting to show up during real combat. The mission still ends successfully, and Gojo sees even more proof that Yuji's potential is real. But the real test is coming next, because after this mission, the next major event is the Detention Center mission where Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara will run into a special grade curse. And that's where things are going to start changing a lot more compared to the original story. So now we move into the Detention Center mission, which is the next major arc. After their first mission, Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara are sent to a juvenile detention center where several people have gone missing. Right away, the situation is worse than expected. The cursed energy around the building is extremely strong, which already tells Megumi that this mission might be above their level. When they enter the building, the inside immediately starts changing. The environment shifts because of the curse's territory, and the three of them quickly realize they're dealing with something way stronger than a normal curse. Nobara still stays involved in the mission, but once Megumi senses the special grade curse deeper inside, he makes the same decision as in the original story. Nobara focuses on clearing weaker curses and protecting the area, while Yuji and Megumi move deeper inside to deal with the main threat. Eventually, the special grade curse appears. In the original story, this is where Yuji gets overwhelmed almost immediately, and things spiral into Sukuna taking control and ripping Yuji's heart out. But in this timeline, the fight plays out differently because of Limitless. When the curse attacks Yuji, it strikes slow down before they fully reach him. Yuji still doesn't understand how to use Limitless properly yet, but the space around him keeps stopping the curse from landing clean hits. So the fight lasts longer than it originally did. Yuji keeps fighting using his physical strength while Limitless protects him from some of the curse's attacks. Megumi notices this right away and realizes Yuji is surviving a fight that normally should have killed him already. But Yuji still can't properly attack with Limitless yet, so he can't finish the curse quickly. Eventually, the situation gets worse, and Sukuna senses that Yuji is in danger. Sukuna briefly takes control of Yuji's body, just like in the original timeline. The difference is what Sukuna decides to do next. Sukuna immediately notices that this body has Limitless and the Six Eyes. Instead of playing around and destroying Yuji's heart like he did before, Sukuna becomes way more interested in this vessel. A body with Limitless and the Six Eyes is far too valuable to waste. Sukuna quickly kills the special grade curse just to see how powerful this body might become later. After that, Yuji regains control of his body again. Because of this change, Yuji never dies during this arc. That means Megumi never has to fight Sukuna the way he did in the original timeline, and the whole heart removal moment never happens. The mission ends with Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara surviving the detention center. This ends up being the biggest change in the arc. Yuji proves he can already survive a fight with a special grade curse while barely understanding Limitless, and both Sukuna and Gojo realize that Yuji's potential might be even higher than they originally thought. And because Yuji never dies here, the story moves forward without that temporary death period, which is going to change some of the upcoming events later on. Because Yuji survives the detention center arc, the higher-ups already know he's alive. Gojo already suspects they're going to target Yuji even more now, since he's Sukuna's vessel. Because of that, Gojo decides the best thing he can do is make Yuji stronger as fast as possible so Yuji can handle things on his own if the higher-ups ever try something. So Gojo starts personally training Yuji and teaches him how to use blue and red. Yuji still can't use everything perfectly yet, but learning these techniques puts him around the level of a pre-awakened Gojo. Now we have the next arc. This is the Visa's Mahito arc. Strange deaths start happening around the city, and the victims all show signs of their bodies being distorted by cursed energy. Yuji gets sent with Nanami to investigate what's going on. During the investigation, they eventually run into Mahito, the curse responsible for everything. When the fight starts, Mahito quickly realizes something is different about Yuji. Mahito tries to attack him, but the moment his hand gets close, the space around Yuji slows the attack down. Because Yuji now understands how to keep Infinity active thanks to Gojo's training, Mahito can't fight him the way he normally would. That's a huge problem for Mahito because his idol transfiguration requires physical contact. This immediately changes how the fight plays out. Mahito tries several times to land a hit, but every time he gets close, the space around Yuji stops him. Nanami also notices this and realizes Yuji is basically the worst possible opponent for Mahito's technique. Yuji starts fighting back, using his normal strength combined with blue, pulling Mahito toward him or crushing space around him during attacks. Mahito still has his shape-shifting body though, so even when Yuji lands hits, it's hard to completely damage him. Nanami joins the fight, and the two of them start overwhelming Mahito together. At this point, Mahito realizes something important. If Yuji can keep Infinity active, Mahito can't touch him at all, which means his strongest ability is basically useless. That makes the fight extremely dangerous for Mahito, but Mahito is still clever. Instead of continuing the fight directly, he creates an opening and escapes before Yuji and Nanami can finish him. Mahito retreats because he realizes fighting Yuji right now is too risky, especially with Nanami there as well. The Junpei part of the arc still happens during this storyline. Mahito still manipulates Junpei and uses him as part of his experiment. Yuji still meets Junpei and tries to connect with him. But when Mahito eventually transforms Junpei, Yuji is furious and tries to stop him. Mahito still escapes at the end of the arc though. Even with Yuji being stronger, Mahito survives by retreating before the fight fully finishes. Now we have the next arc, the Kyoto Goodwill event arc. Even though Yuji survived the detention center arc, the higher-ups still want him dead. It doesn't matter to them if he survived or not, because Yuji is still Sukuna's vessel. Because of that, the Kyoto students are still secretly ordered to eliminate Yuji if the chance appears during the event. The difference this time is that everyone already knows Yuji has the 6 eyes and limitless. That completely changes how the Tokyo students see him. Maki is the first one to really point it out, saying that if Yuji actually has Gojo's abilities, then he might end up becoming the next Gojo someday. Panda mostly jokes about it, but he also understands Yuji is now their strongest fighter. Megumi doesn't talk about it much, but he already knows Yuji's potential after seeing him fight before. Nobara mostly just treats Yuji the same as always and doesn't really care about all the hype around him. Because of that, the Tokyo team understands Yuji is basically their strongest piece during the event. When the Kyoto students arrive, the tension is still there. They still plan to follow the higher-ups order if the opportunity appears. When the event begins and both teams enter the forest, the battles start spreading out across the area. This is when Todo shows up. Instead of waiting or testing things slowly, Todo immediately rushes Yuji and throws a punch right at him. But the moment his fist gets close, it slows down and stops before reaching Yuji because of Infinity. Yuji blocks it easily, and the two of them start throwing hands for a bit. Todo keeps attacking while Yuji defends using Infinity and throws some attacks back. Then, just like in the original timeline, Todo suddenly stops mid-fight and asks Yuji his type of woman. Yuji answers the same way he always does, and Todo instantly declares that Yuji is his brother. From that point on, they stop trying to beat each other and instead start training and fighting together like in the original story. The rest of the fights around the forest keep going. Megumi fights the Kyoto students and shows more of the Ten Shadows technique. Maki and Panda are fighting their own battles across the forest as well. Eventually, the entire event gets interrupted when Hanami appears. Once Hanami enters the battlefield, the competition basically ends and it becomes a real fight. Yuji and Todo still team up against Hanami just like in the original timeline, but the fight changes a bit because Yuji now has Infinity and knows how to use blue. Hanami's attacks struggle to reach Yuji because of Infinity slowing them down before they connect. Todo supports Yuji using Boogie Woogie, constantly swapping their positions to create openings so Yuji can land stronger hits. Even with that advantage, Hanami is still extremely durable, so the fight becomes chaotic as more students get involved, including Megumi and Maki at different points. Eventually, the situation escalates enough that Gojo steps in like he did in the original story. Once Gojo arrives, the cursed spirits realize they can't win that fight and retreat. By the end of the Kyoto Goodwill event arc, everyone watching understands something important. Yuji Itadori isn't just Sukuna's Sukuna's vessel anymore, he's someone who could realistically grow into the next Gojo. Before we get into the next arc, something important happens after the Kyoto Goodwill event. After the event, Yuji and Gojo continue training together. This time, Yuji actually goes beyond the level of a pre-awakened Gojo. Yuji learns reverse curse technique and is able to heal himself during fights, and Gojo also teaches him how to properly combine blue and red so he can use hollow purple. Normally, Gojo only unlocked these things after his near-death experience against Toji, but Yuji doesn't have to go through that because Gojo can directly explain the technique to him. Since their abilities are almost identical, Yuji can understand the mechanics much faster than Gojo originally did. Because of that, Yuji becomes extremely dangerous very quickly. At this point, Yuji now has reverse curse technique, blue, red, and hollow purple. The only thing he still hasn't used yet is a domain expansion. It's still unknown what Yuji's domain would be, since it could turn into Sukuna's domain, Infinite Void, or even some kind of combination of the two. That part of his power hasn't appeared yet. Now we have the next arc, the Death Painting arc. Strange cursed objects connected to the Death Painting wombs start appearing, and Yuji is sent on a mission with Nobara to investigate. Megumi is also involved in the mission at the beginning. Eventually, the mission leads them to the Death Painting brothers Eso and Kachizu. When the fight begins, the brothers quickly realize Yuji isn't a normal sorcerer. Their attacks try to reach him, but Infinity slows them down before they can fully hit him. Yuji doesn't even need to rely on it the entire time though, because his offense is way stronger now too. Yuji starts using blue to pull the brothers off balance and control the space around the battlefield. Eso and Kachizu still try to overwhelm them using their decay techniques. Nobara still plays a big role in this fight as well, because her resonance technique works extremely well against the Death Painting brothers. She's able to link the damage between them, weakening both at the same time. The fight escalates when the brothers start using their stronger attacks. Yuji begins taking the fight more seriously and uses red during one of his counter attacks to blast Kachizu back. This immediately shows the difference in power compared to the original timeline. As the fight reaches its peak, Nobara lands another resonance that damages both brothers simultaneously. With them weakened, Yuji finishes the fight by combining blue and red to fire a hollow purple, completely overwhelming the brothers and ending the fight much faster than it originally happened. By the end of the Death Painting arc, Yuji has fully proven just how much stronger he has become. With Limitless, the Six Eyes, Reverse Curse Technique, and Hollow Purple, Yuji is already approaching the level of the strongest sorcerers in the series. Now we've reached the next arc, which is one of the biggest arcs in JJK, the Shibuya arc. This arc changes a lot in this timeline because Yuji is way stronger than he was in the original story. At this point, Yuji already has the Six Eyes and Limitless. He can use blue and red, he has Reverse Curse Technique to heal himself, and he can even use Hollow Purple if the fight gets serious. On top of that, he still has his insane physical strength and hand-to-hand combat ability. Gojo still gets sealed. After Gojo is sealed, the rest of the Shibuya incident spreads into multiple battles across the city. One of the early fights is when Yuji runs into the transfigured humans Mahito created. In the original timeline, Yuji struggles with them for a while, but here he clears them much faster. Infinity keeps them from reaching him easily, and Yuji cuts through them quickly while moving deeper into Shibuya. Eventually, Yuji runs into Choso. In the original timeline, Choso overwhelms Yuji and nearly kills him, but here the fight goes very differently. Choso fires attacks like Piercing Blood and Supernova, but Infinity slows them down before they can reach Yuji. Yuji closes the distance and starts fighting Choso in close combat. Using blue to control the spacing of the fight, Yuji keeps pulling Choso off balance. Choso quickly realizes landing a clean hit on Yuji is extremely difficult. The fight becomes intense for a while, but Yuji eventually overwhelms Choso and defeats him instead of losing like in the original timeline. After defeating Choso, Yuji moves deeper into the battle across Shibuya. Around this time, another major fight is happening against Dagon. Nanami, Maki, and Naobito are already trapped inside Dagon's domain expansion. In the original timeline, they are struggling heavily until Toji appears. In this version, Yuji arrives earlier and enters the domain as well. Inside the domain, Yuji immediately becomes a major factor in the fight. Dagon's Shikigami attacks constantly flood the area, but Infinity protects Yuji from many of the hits while he moves through the domain. Yuji uses blue to disrupt Dagon's positioning and create openings for Nanami, Maki, and Naobito to attack. Even with Yuji helping, Dagon is still extremely extremely dangerous because of his domain. The fight becomes chaotic until Toji eventually appears, just like in the original timeline. Toji overwhelms Dagon with pure physical ability and finishes the fight. Yuji, witnessing Toji's strength, also adds another insane fighter to the battlefield for a short time. After Dagon is defeated, the battles across Shibuya continue. Yuji eventually runs into Mahito again. Mahito still wants revenge after their earlier encounters, but this time the matchup is far worse for him. Mahito needs physical contact for idol transfiguration, and Infinity makes that extremely difficult. Yuji keeps pressure on Mahito using his hand-to-hand combat while controlling the battlefield with blue. Mahito tries to adapt and escape during the chaos of the battle. The Shibuya incident continues with multiple fights happening across the city, but the biggest difference in this timeline is that Yuji never suffers the crushing defeat he originally had. Because Yuji stays in control throughout the arc, Sukuna never gets released and never goes on his massive rampage through Shibuya. Instead, Yuji becomes one of the central fighters, helping the sorcerers survive the Shibuya incident while Gojo remains sealed. Make sure to leave a comment down below if you guys want me to make a part 2. Also, make sure to like and subscribe.